We'll call our meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Supervisor Felton?
Here.
Treasurer Horning?
Yes.
Clerk Chofew? Here. Trustee Collier? Absent. Trustee Germain?
Here.
Trustee Harper?
Here.
Trustee Petrucci? Here.
Thank you. I did talk to Trustee Kalani, and he will be here around 7:15. He's en route from Lansing. Item number 4 is approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Harper. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 5 is call to the public. Anybody that wants to come with any agenda item this evening, please raise your hand. We'll have you come forward, state your name, and we give everybody about 3 minutes, and this will be our opportunity to talk about anything on the agenda this evening. Mr. Hughes, good evening.
Hello, Chuck Hughes, Superintendent, Hartland Consolidated Schools, and with me is Mr. Scott Bacon, Assistant Superintendent, Business and Finance. So thank you for letting us come tonight. We just wanted to come tonight to make the township aware of a sinking fund bond proposal for May 2nd, 2017. I did pass some information out to you, as well as put some information on the back here if anybody wants it. Basically, we wanted to let you know that we've been struggling, as I think all municipalities do, with how do we continue to ensure that we have the funding available to create the premier school of choice school district here in Hartland, and to ensure that we're providing the programming and the facilities and the technology for our students to have the best opportunity for post-secondary success. So on May 2nd, we do have the bond proposal going forward. What we wanted to point out, and I think the biggest thing that we wanted to talk about tonight in our couple of minutes that we have, is the ballot language. The one thing that concerns us in the ballot language when we're going for a sinking fund is that there's very specific language you have to use based on the state expectations. And in that ballot language, it talks about an increase. And there is what the ballot is asking for is the public to approve a $500,000 sinking fund that can be used for upgrades and repairs to our facilities and technology. It can also be used for real estate if we needed it, but currently we have 80 acres sitting out on Clyde Road, so we don't anticipate necessarily looking at real estate property at this point in time. It's a 10-year proposal. It would generate about $600,000 a year that we could use interest-free, goes into a pot over here when collected, and we can use that for upgrades within the school district and, again, for facilities and technology. The key is that if this passes on May 2nd, our Board of Education has agreed in June to roll back our current debt retirement fund. And so I gave you a picture there. It's actually a number bond. It's a math problem. It's a 5th grade math problem, by the way, because it has decimals in it. And so in a number bond, the lines across have to equal each other. So if I was using 8 in the yellow, and the 2 blue boxes would be 4. So our kids would say 2 4s equals an 8, right? So in June, if this passes, we'll lower the current 8.55 debt retirement tax levy down to 8.05 mils, and then use that, make up that difference in the sinking fund for a net zero increase in the current tax rate here in Hartland. And we just want to get the message out to everybody that, yes, the ballot language says it's an increase, but the board is going to roll back and restructure our mortgage payment, basically, so that we still are taking care of that, paying on principal, because the state expects that we pay 7.76, I believe it is. So we'll still have some extra money to continue to put towards our principal on our mortgages, financially sound, working on getting those paid off, but also putting money aside that we can use for future planning when things are going wrong in the school district or we have to make repairs. A couple years ago, for instance, at Farms Intermediate, we had to put $250,000 into a septic field. Well, that comes out of the general fund, and that strains the general fund. So this, we thought, was a very prudent way of looking at how we can continue to plan and continue to keep our buildings in pristine shape. So that's what we're asking the township and the Hartland community to vote on, and we just appreciate you letting us share that message.
Thank you very much. If somebody wants information, where would they get it?
They could contact myself, or they can contact Mr. Bacon, and either of us could talk about that. All right?
And we have a lot of information on our website. A short version for people that I just want to know when and how much, and a longer version for people who want to get a little more information. There's the frequently asked questions, a number of pieces of information there.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much.
Can I mention one other thing while I'm here, just for 30 seconds? I just want to thank James. James and myself and Katie over at the Chamber and Cece over at the library have been meeting once a month, and it's been a really good dialogue, a good opportunity to have connection. So I want to thank James because I think he kind of spearheaded that and put that together. So thank you, James.
Thank you.
Plus, this is the third time that he's heard us talk about it. Still holding up good.
Only my second.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. Others that call to the public this evening? Seeing none, a call to the public. We'll move on to item number 6, which is approval of our consent agenda.
I'll move. Support.
Motion by Trustee Petrucci, second by Trustee Harper. Is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 7A is Hartland Glen Development Rezoning. I was hoping Trustee Claney would be here.
I'll make a motion, then we can discuss.
Sure.
Okay. I'll move to approve rezoning application number 361, a request to rezone approximately 73 acres that includes the property address at 12396 Cundy, parcel 4708-26-100-001, 12398 Cundy, parcel 4708-26-100-012, and a portion of 12400 Highland Road, Hartland Glen Golf Club, parcel 4708-26-100-019, from conservation agriculture to high-density residential based on the following findings. 1, the requested HDR zoning is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. 2, the requested HDR zoning is intended to serve as a transitional use between high-density and lower-density uses and is appropriate for the subject property. 3, potential uses allowed in the requested HDR zoning are compatible with surrounding uses and zoning. 4, the subject property can comply with dimensional requirements of the HDR district.
Support.
Okay, have a motion by Treasurer Horning, support by Trustee Harper. Now we can open up to some discussion. If you've had an opportunity to look at the packet, there's been at least 2 meetings at the Planning Commission recently. This property was looked at years ago. I believe it's been probably over 10 years ago. There was a lot of activity at that point, and hence it's kind of slowed down in the last 10 years. This has gone through the planning process with a public hearing, and it comes with a recommendation from the Planning Commission to go forward with that rezoning. That does not mean that we're approving any type of housing project at this point. It just allows the applicant to go forward with a site plan and go through the process within the ordinance under the rezoning application. Manager Wickman, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that fairly well summarizes it. It would be as a straight rezoning, not a planned development that you may be more used to than whatever proposal might come. Probably, don't want to conjecture too much, a site condominium of some sort would be a straight site plan, would go through the Planning Commission only at that time for a site plan approval. And that would come later.
And this rezoning is part of a larger parcel, roughly 360 acres, and I believe it's around 73 acres that they're looking to rezone at this point. Is there any questions or any comments from the board?
Mr. Claney will be here in a minute.
Yep.
But I do have a question for James, perhaps. On tax parcel 26-100-019, which is the 383-plus acre parcel, only a portion of that part tax parcel would be redesignated. So would we, in essence, be creating a new tax ID number for the other portion?
Might be a boundary line adjustment?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is just rezoning that property, so you have a parcel with two different zoning on it. It's not unheard of. What's not been requested is land division. The apportionment of the RUs would happen at the point of a land division. I expect that would happen in the application development process at a future date, and then the board would have to approve how the RUs get apportioned when it's divided. Tonight is just rezoning a portion of one parcel, and it would remain one parcel at this point.
And I apologize, I should have asked the applicants to come forward, and please state your name for the record, and I apologize for that.
You don't have to.
So if there's any questions from the board themselves, we can.
My name is Sam Yaldo, and with me is my partner, Dave Nona. We're the owners of Hartland Golf Course, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the rezoning process.
And Trustee Kalani, we just got started. No, you just sat down. We just got started. Basically, there's a motion and a support on the table for the rezoning. We gave an overview. We stated
did the overview?
We
Okay.
did the overview.
Ask questions.
Suggested that if there's any comments or questions that you may want to bring to the table itself, now would be a good time.
And if I can ask a specific question, since I know you're our liaison with the Planning Commission, and they ended up with a split vote, so I was curious if you can convey a little bit of some of the concerns that were expressed.
Sure. I think that some of the main concerns were because this was taking 73 acres, I think it's 73.8 acres,
Yes.
out of the 600 and
Out of close to 400, 384, yeah.
the 400 acres. Many of the planning commissioners, or several of the planning commissioners, were concerned with, they would like to see what the overall plan is for the site. But, what we had in front of us was the zoning of that portion of the property, and that's really what we had to look at, and look at whether or not it complied with or was consistent with the master plan and the other elements. So I think some of the planning commissioners were, I will say that we've never done that before either. It's not unusual to have a large property owner with a large parcel come in and look at a portion of their property without having a full understanding of what they may do with the remainder. And that's that would have been kind of inconsistent with what we've done in the past in terms of planning commission.
But that wasn't the question before you, right? It was
Right,
just
that was- it was
rezone
not
those
the issue
73
before us.
acres, and it did
Correct.
follow all the rules.
Correct. So that was the main issue. I think there was some thoughts on the parts of the commissioners as well that it would have been nice to see what happened with the remainder of the property because of some of the natural features and concerns that were brought by the public. That's the watershed area there, and some concerns about the natural features, in particular the environment. So it was stressed at that time that this was not a final plat. This was just a conceptual plan, and just because of what was demonstrated or shown by the applicant of what the thought was in terms of the density of that parcel, it doesn't necessarily mean that all those parcels or that site plan is it wasn't up for site plan approval. So that was just a very, very much a conceptual plan. So.
And I might reinforce something there, and also for the public's benefit. I mean, this is a rezoning. This is not a planned development. So the fact that you have a conceptual plan in front of you might aid your decision, but for all intents and purposes, you disregard that. You are rezoning the property to allow that property to develop under any of the principal permitted uses that this designation would provide. And there is a copy of that in there. It is designated, it would be high-density residential, and to clarify that for the benefit of everybody, that may be a bit of a misnomer. It's still detached single-family homes. High-density residential only refers to the lot size of being a smaller lot size and homes closer together than other places might be. That's the only designation. It does not allow for apartments or manufactured homes or other types of things you might associate with high density. It's still detached single-family homes.
And James, would it not be true that without any zoning change whatsoever, the applicant could still proceed with housing construction there, except they would have to comply to the CA, which is a minimum 2-acre lot with the 200-foot width, right?
Homes could be built on a straight land use permit on 2-acre lots there.
Right. And the size of the high-density lots that you referenced, that may be a misnomer, they're about 0.2 of an acre, if I remember correctly, and the lot width is reduced to 70 feet from 200 feet.
Yeah, minimum 70-foot frontage and a minimum total size of 8,400 feet.
Square feet.
Square feet, yes.
And then the other question I had, I guess either of you could address this, but to get an idea of other developments in Hartland Township that might be similar, what would be a good example?
I asked that question when we were at the Planning Commission, but you can go right over here to Heritage Meadows. It's
which
off
was one
the
of our
road.
projects.
Is it Walnut Ridge similar to?
And Walnut Ridge is a
Very
similar, I think. And then it's not unlike some of the lake properties that are nearby, including, what's the subdivision, your subdivision?
Forestbrook Hills.
Forestbrook Hills, which is
Those are probably larger lots.
a little larger lots, but
And so would Walnut Ridge. But, I mean, it's the perfect example would be Heritage Meadows right here on Clark Road. Autumn Ridge, very close lot lines.
Any other questions?
No more questions.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? We do have a motion and a support. If there's no other comments, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next applicant this evening is Shops at Walden Woods. There's an amendment to their PD, which I believe, good evening, by the way, and welcome.
Thank you.
They're at the request of the Shops at Walden Woods, an amendment to their sign what do you want to call it?
PD signage.
The signage within the development. And good evening.
Hello.
And your name for the record is?
I'm Michelle Schaefer, and I represent the landlord.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And again, this went before the Planning Commission
Yes,
with this,
it did.
this
February
PD agreement
14th.
with a recommendation for approval. And Trustee Kalani, do you have any comments on this applicant?
this is fairly straightforward, and I think it's an improvement as to what's being proposed. The main aspect of this particular sign is to allow additional signage along the side, if I recall, for all the tenants.
Right.
Why don't you go ahead and explain it a little bit better?
The reason we're requesting this is because the existing signage that's up there already is pretty much being used by the anchor tenants such as Kroger, CVS, and Target. It's specifically in their leases that they have to have signage. Kroger, for example, has to have 2 signs, CVS as well. So there's really no visibility and no place for the smaller shops like Beale Street or AAA or the cleaners. There's no place for them to be represented. So what we're doing is asking that the verbiage on the monument sign be changed to allow the small tenants only. So Kroger, CVS, and Target would not be permitted on the project identification sign. It would just be the smaller tenants in addition to Walden Woods, the resort. We would keep them on there with a directional arrow as well. So that's the reason we're asking for the PD to be amended.
That's really the only reason it's here is because it is an amendment to the PD. This is probably about the simplest amendment to a PD you'll ever see, and the signage being requested is consistent with the newer commercial developments that have come recently.
I'll move to approve site plan application 17-001, a request to amend the PD agreement for Shops at Waldo Woods PD and to modify the project identification sign as shown in Exhibit E1 based on the following findings. The Planning Commission has determined the proposed modifications for the project identification sign are reasonable and provide additional sign options for tenants who are not one of the major tenants. The Planning Commission has determined that the proposed modifications as shown in Exhibit E-1 are consistent with the original monument sign and the dimensions of the sign are not changing. 3, the Planning Commission has determined that the proposed sign panels assist in directing patrons to the development and the Resort and Conference Center. 4, the Planned Development Agreement, Third Amendment, shall be modified to require all sign panels on the identification sign and all future panel signs be constructed of an opaque material to remain consistent with the Township zoning ordinance. Number 5, approval of the PD amendment language of the Third Amendment and Exhibit E1, dated January 23, 2017, shall be subject to the approval of the Township Attorney.
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Kalani. Any discussion?
I'd like to just make one comment with regards to as long as we're talking about signs, and this has nothing to do with the tenant signs, but the entrance to the north or the east side of CVS, that entrance right there, first entrance coming off of Old 23.
Okay.
If you go to the north side of the building, which is the back of that building, there's a stop sign there. You can barely see that stop sign. It's faded, the trees are hiding it, and somebody's going to get clipped back there. So I would hope that you would fix that as well.
Thank you for making note and making us aware. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
One question for James. I know we discussed this yesterday in our meeting, and I was under the impression that the Township Attorney has already approved this. Is that true?
I think there may, as often happens with PD agreements, there are drafts that go back and forth, and it may not be in the absolute finished version between attorneys, but he has been involved in the earliest drafts of that.
Okay.
Plus, this language came from the Planning Commission, and at the time it probably wasn't, so they
Yeah,
were
it may.
minutes.
There may be a final version already. I just couldn't tell you.
Any other discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 8A is a resolution of intent for Mill Point Road Improvement SAD. Mr. West, good evening.
Good evening.
This is a request for the Mill Point subdivision. They have asked the township to look at the possibility of a special assessment district over 10 years. I believe they have 66% of their people have signed a affidavit stating that they like to go forward with this project. So I'm going to turn it over to you so you can fill in the board and ask, give us the process as we go forward this evening.
Thank you. Little history here. Mill Point Homeowner Association approached the township last year with regards to the feasibility of improving Andover Drive. That particular section of Mill Point is degrading. It's equivalent to a Paiser rating of 1 when comparing it to Livingston County Road Commission standards. Per our private road assessment policy, we require that anybody who's being assessed, any parcel, would receive a direct benefit in front of their home. We went back to the Mill Point Homeowners Association. We met with them multiple times. Basically, the project has gained substantial support. The Mill Point Homeowners Association has invested a substantial amount of capital with some previous engineering through a third-party organization. HRC, our township engineer, has reviewed that information and deemed it accurate and has added the remaining roads in that development to be incorporated into this plan as well. And just on a note, too, you mentioned the 66% of the signatures. I wanted to note that we had a substantial amount of anomalies with the signatures, either between death and divorce or that have not been recorded yet at this time. I don't want to allude to the fact that anybody who did not sign by default is against this project. After attending multiple meetings and talking with the residents of the area, I believe there a more accurate approval rating or by the residents would be in the 70% range. So that being said, the Mill Point Homeowners Association has really worked hard towards moving this project forward, and in an effort to bring it to you, I have prepared the resolution of intent for approval. I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding this project. The total sum of this project is anticipated to be $1,140,000, and that my recommendation is to assess that over a 10-year period.
And just so it's very clear to everybody, the process just started this evening. Well, it started before this evening, but this is the first action that the board has taken.
That is correct.
And this is at the request of the subdivision, not at the request of the township.
Correct.
And there will be a process as we go forward. We're not approving anything this evening as far as spending any dollars. If you could briefly explain what happens next after this evening.
Absolutely. Tonight, the resolution of intent would just be to initiate the process. Additionally, the resolution of intent does call out the first scheduled public hearing, which would be, if approved or adopted, the resolution would set the public hearing for April 18th, the April 18th board meeting. From that point on, we would proceed into the resolution of determination and then ultimately confirming the role prior to the construction process and putting this project out to bid.
Did we require a deposit because this is a private road?
Mill Point has submitted a deposit in addition to they paid the full deposit in addition to already having their own private engineer, which HRC said was done well.
All the design work?
Yes.
Wow.
So
okay.
I would say as far as the design, they're more than halfway through already based on their own efforts outside of what the township has initiated or supported.
So
But yes, they...
hopefully done this year?
It's going to be a tough timeline. And what happened last year when we tried to do asphalt projects was towards the end of September, we couldn't get an asphalt company who had room in their schedule. Everybody was cramming to get the projects done. Every year seems to be a little bit different. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but there's a slight possibility this might be a 2017 project. However, a conservative approach would be to, much like Ore Valley Drive was, where we'll establish the bid documents and most likely put them out just before spring. The advantage to that is there's, generally speaking, a better price point when you put the project out to bid in January or February versus trying to squeeze it in at the end of the year.
What are they estimating per household?
I don't have the breakdown in front of me. I apologize.
About 5,500.
About 5,500. So, and that is with HRC's contingencies and their estimate built into that. So
Bob, how if you lived in that community, how will you be notified about the public hearing?
the public hearing, legally we have to put it into the newspaper 2 times prior to the public meeting, 10 days apart. Additionally, every resident who is being proposed in this assessment will receive a direct mailing to their home, informing them of the time and dates of the actual public hearing.
And the public hearing will be held here?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Right. Any questions from the board?
I'll move resolution of intent to make private road improvements, ratification of prior township action, tentative designation of special assessment district, and notice of public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Trustee Claney, second by Trustee Harper. Is there any other discussion? Being none, I'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Trustee Germain?
Yes.
Supervisor Fountain?
Yes.
Trustee Collier?
Yes.
Treasurer Horning?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Clerk Schofield? Yes. Trustee Petrucci?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Item number 8B is Fire Authority budget. We have reviewed this at least once or twice already. It's before us this evening. It does not have to have a public hearing. Is there any comment from the Fire Authority members as to anything at this point?
I think it's been pretty much explained to the board by Fire Chief Carroll. Primarily, the increase was due to the impact of a 38% increase of insurances, mainly the workman's comp insurance, which is calculated off of a 3-year period for the 4th year. Providing that we don't have any major claims during this year, we anticipate that workman's comp insurance will come down a little bit next year and get back into more in line to what we were used to. But this 38% increase is pretty tough to overcome. There was a question with regards to the percentage of increase. The Fire Authority did it on a per change per year basis. There's 2 ways of doing it, on a per change or on a per difference. And the percentage per difference will be used in the future. We talked to our CPA, so we will be doing that in the future.
And Joe, just to be clear, the budget didn't go up by 38%.
No.
I just
The
want to make
insurance
sure that
costs.
people heard that correctly.
The
It was
insurance costs went up 38%.
Insurance cost. It is for clarification. Thank you. Are there any other comments or concerns for the Fire Authority?
I would just have one comment, and I would say that, I echo what you said, Mr. Supervisor, about our diligence in reviewing this budget and thoroughly understanding its impact on township finances for the coming year. I want to compliment the Fire Authority and specifically Chief Adam Carroll for his diligence in explaining the numbers and verifying that, he's not out to gouge the townships that they're serving. So it's very evident that he's trying to do a good fiscal policies and work within the limits that he expects from income.
Okay. Thank you. If there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2017-2018 budget proposal from the Hartland Fire Authority.
I'll support it.
Motion by Trustee Harper, second by Trustee Petrucci. Is there any other discussion or questions? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. And number 9 is board reports. We are in our second meeting in March, and we start with Trustee Petrucci.
I have no other comments tonight.
Clerk Schofield.
No report.
Treasurer Horning.
Well, I'm happy to tell everybody on the board that every township within the Hartland School District is now contributing to the senior center. Brighton Township came forward after we attended their meeting a few weeks ago, and they're paying equivalent to their participation of residents, and kind of had Bill Fountain to thank for that, urging us to go out and get more money, and we did. So, thank you.
Is there, is this all sort of voluntarily, or is there going to be some sort of agreement going forward, or is that something you might explore?
Oh, different townships are operating differently. Osceola was similar to us, and they came up with an agreement, and the other ones are pretty much handshakes. So.
Okay. Just curious.
I have a question for you, Kathy. Can you provide an update on the farmers market, where they're going to be and when they open?
Yes, the farmers market will be at Rural King, and it opens the 3rd Saturday in May. And I'm amazed at how it's being promoted through Rural King, and we're getting several calls for new vendors this year, and I think it's going to be our biggest and best market ever. And they've given us the location in the east end of the parking lot where they're not using that part of the store, so it's a nice safe area, and we pretty much can be as large as we want. And they're excited to have us, and we're excited to be there. So May 20th.
Okay. Is that the day of the shredding day? Big cleanup
That's
item?
large item.
That's
yes,
large item.
awesome.
Okay.
And it'll be kids planting day at the market.
Nice. Trustee Kalani
I have nothing to report.
and Trustee...
And I apologize for being late. I couldn't get out of the office soon enough. Trust me.
And Trustee Germain?
Just a quick update on the property where the Hartland 36 gas plant used to be. 2 weeks ago, when we had our meeting, I indicated that 3 additional wells were installed on the 5-acre parcel. Merritt's consultant had the sulfurane test expedited. So instead of taking 10 days, we got them back in 3. And those 3 new deep wells that were installed all came back clean. So at this point, in essence, the plume has been defined vertically and horizontally in all directions from the original source. And Merritt has indicated they're very eager to begin pilot testing for remediation activities.
Matt, would there be some type of a report that would be coming from DEQ summarizing that?
In the interest of the timeline, all they submitted to DEQ and to me as the township liaison is the actual analytical reports themselves, but we can certainly provide those to the township and post them.
Okay. Thank you.
To answer your question, there will be a more formal report forthcoming, but nothing so far.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Trustee Harper?
No report.
Just briefly, we did have board of review, and I got this from Jim Heslop not too long ago, our assessor. I do want to give a shout out to our assessing department. For those that don't know, we got a very good report card from the state a couple of years ago, but I just want to share a few numbers with everyone from our board of review last week. It's already been given to the county. It's already been approved by the county. And here's kind of how things have changed in the last since 2009. In 2009, we had 282 applicants through board of review. This year, we had a total of 56. And we actually only had 19, I believe, applicants come before the board this year, which is a record low since I've been doing this, which has been quite a few years. And we are at the minimum amount of time required, which is 12 hours over 2 days within the evening shift. So we did go back to one board of review, and I think that kind of says a lot about Jim Heslop's staff and our team here to only get 56 applicants. And by the way, out of that 56, just get the quick number here, 38% of that 56 were Veterans Administration exemptions, where we have no, that's all done by the state of Michigan, that we basically, I don't want to say rubber stamp, but we don't do anything with the Veterans Administration exemptions. And then most of the people that had come before us were new home buyers where their properties had uncapped. So that was the biggest amount. So again, kudos to our staff, and I think they did a great job. If there's nothing else at this point, I'll entertain a motion to go a quick break. I'm sorry, man.
I wanted to make sure we didn't miss Larry. Either he didn't have nothing to say or he never got asked.
I think he was first.
Oh, was he? Okay.
I got everybody tonight, didn't I? Okay. So we'll take a brief recess. We're going to go into the back room over here, and we're going to have hopefully a short work session.